This is all about relationships. So we have Simon Rhind-Tutt and Tina Fegent. And take it away, guys.
Thank you. There we go. This kind of feels like the media presentation at the end of an old-fashioned new business pitch.
We're like Ant and Dec.
Well, sort of, yeah.
Right, sorry?
Relationships have always mattered, but right now they matter even more. We're moving faster, we're working harder, but we seem to have less real time together. Technology connects us, but it doesn't always bring us closer. And trust, as we've seen earlier, is fragile and time is short. And yet relationships remain the key to everything. And that's why our working group set out to assess the actual state of relationships within the entire marketing services ecosystem. We had a fantastic group, and Martin from the States, Ginny, her ladyship, Beth, Nick, Mia, yours truly, and Lily, and a few other people. We've worked very closely over the last 9 months, and there's a shed load of work that's gone into what we're going to show you. But the good thing is that it's a diverse mix of marketing directors, consultants, trade associations, advertising, and production. We set ourselves a dual brief. The first was to understand the health of relationships across the industry. But also, secondly, really looking at trying to identify opportunities that actually may exist that will drive business success for everybody associated. So, coming up, this is in 3 parts. Tina's going to talk about marketing directors' internal relationships with their stakeholders, because it struck us that everybody's talking about agency or sales relationships, but actually we should take a step backwards and look at the state of marketing director relationships with the key stakeholders in the C-suite. Secondly, we commissioned our own research, and we called it the Relationship Strength Index, and I'll talk about that. And then we're going to look to the future. What we wanted to come to this conference with was some firm recommendations born out of the insight. So put it another way, there were 9 of us, and the first thing we did was undertake a fair load of desk research. We conducted 21 depth interviews with marketing directors. We had 198 respondents to the online survey. Within our group, there was myself from Relationship Audits and a couple of other companies in the space, Flock and Appraise. We compared notes, but it kind of led us to one conclusion. And that is, we are suffering a recession. In the words of one marketing director, people on both sides of the fence are more scared than ever before. So the question is, how do we strengthen relationships to drive mutual success? So here are the views from the front line. And Tina, over to you.
Thank you very much. So yeah, as Simon said, we conducted a survey with 21 marketing directors, and thanks Virginia, if you're still here, for helping us draft that questionnaire. And we did about 3 questionnaires each, and they last about 45 minutes to an hour. So thanks to all the marketing directors that really helped us. So basically, a number of things came out. The first one was the relationship with CFO, and obviously, for those of you who don't know me, I work in procurement, and often procurement does report into the CFO. So we have quite a close relationship with the CFO. And a common theme, and actually some of the ones that I spoke to, really felt it was their toughest stakeholder. Actually building that trust through numbers, and you can see the quote on the right-hand side, that they don't have any appreciation of what we do as a team. So perhaps that can leave marketing undervalued in some board discussions. Our next one was about sales. Sales is frequently dominant, where are the sales figures, where we are, I'm working with a retail client at the moment and their Mondays are filled with sales meetings. What do we do over the weekend? How many do we sell of this? How many do we do with that? And actually campaigns are often only aligned with sales outcomes. So again, that's really, really tough for a lot of the CMOs that we interviewed. Our third one was measurement, in terms of advertising is often discounted, particularly where it actually lacks exact metrics. And I find that quite interesting because in a lot of the pitches and sometimes that I run, you say, okay, where are the KPIs, where are the metrics, what you're looking to do? And actually sometimes they're just all in different places and different parts of an organisation have got different metrics. So really interesting. But the other point was the abundance of data. And I think we saw that just before lunch about there's so many data points, but actually, where are we with all the data? And it just makes it a bit too hard. And again, making marketing feel undervalued in board discussions. The next one that came up was data and AI. And actually, what is the role of that in terms of it can be a real productivity enabler. But again, there's millions and millions of systems. And I think it was referred to earlier that survey from Intermedia Global said that 9 out of 10 marketeers were chosen a different path if they'd known how technology-centric their role would be, which was really, I thought, really interesting. Leadership, and it's quite interesting, we saw leadership from Crispin's slide presentation the time before. But actually, where CEOs and CFOs, the quote says, understand marketing, it earns airtime. And those of you who follow me on Martina Tells on LinkedIn, I did share an article from McKinsey in July where it said the gap between the CEO and the CMO is just getting worse. Because actually, CMOs have all these amazing metrics, but actually it's really hard to talk to the C-suite and the CEOs about it. And actually the marketing role is getting really complex. And actually there's, the CMO role, there's the chief data officer, there's a chief information officer, there's the CEO. It's really looking at what the relationship is with the C-suite and from a CMO point of view. And actually really having that leadership alignment does make a difference. And I think those in the room that do either your agency side or client side, marketing is stretched. Teams are spread too thinly, and there's just not enough training. And we see that. It's often the first thing that goes, especially from a procurement point of view, when you see it. What's the first thing that goes? It's budget. And I always say, a lot of the clients I deal with, the CMOs, global CMOs, and actually the ones that are ex-P&G, Unilever. I remember 25 years ago when I was at SmithKline Beecham, travelling the world on a marketing leadership training programme, actually teaching the SmithKline Beecham marketeers on procurement all those years ago. But often, and sadly, it's one of the first things that does go. There's just no money for training. And there's 50 different channels, there's 25,000 agencies in the UK. So it's really, really tough. Then our last bit was constant justification. I think that can be really, really tough. Negotiation, which obviously from a procurement point of view we love. But actually, the governance, and one of my retail clients, when I saw her recently at a conference, said she spends 70% of her time just justifying her budgets, what her actions are. She's on annual plan number 55. And it's just, in a way, where's the glamour gone? Where's the fun gone? And it's just really, really hard. And it takes its toll on the marketeers. And there's the human cost of undervaluation. The marketeers we spoke to often feel overwhelmed, undervalued, and sometimes perhaps reduce those metric drivers as well. And then from a procurement point of view, well, it's agencies. We use the term suppliers, but actually is it partners or suppliers? And actually the best relationships are where there is a true partnership. You look at some of the great advertising that we've had over the last, say, 70 years. We look at the ITV work, but actually the best, it does polarise opinion. I think the best agency partnerships are those integrated, trusted partners. The worst is we've got the quote there, are seen as expensive suppliers with limited internal influence.
Tina, can I just add to that? One of the things I've found over the years is that when agencies first start working with the clients, they very often say, we're your new partner. All of the work I've done over the last 20 years into business relationships is you're not. You need to earn the rights to be a partner. If you're an agency, the best thing a client can actually say to you is, we're your partner, because it has to be earned rather than assumed.
Yeah, and I think during COVID, I saw a lot of that, different agencies' reactions. Some ran away from clients, some stood with them, because when shots were shot and stuff like that and budgets were being cut, did they stand together? And actually, I would say it's about 50-50, so I think that's a really good point, Simon, on that. So our summary of the 21 interviews is, from a marketing point of view, marketing is in a position of weakness. it does have a ripple effect on the internal ecosystem. But we as a collective, those of us that are in the room and hopefully the wider members of our work streams, we really need to step up to help marketeers deliver those better relationships. And we believe that from a procurement point of view because, it really is about having, we have to work really hard with our internal relationships, with our stakeholders, with agencies, with consultants we can use as well. So I'll now hand over to Simon, who's going to talk about our index.
Thank you very much. Okay, part 2, the Relationship Strength Index. What we did was we wanted to check the health of the state of the relationships in the industry. So we invested ourselves in this online survey. There were 19 quantitative questions and 3 qualitative questions. And we wanted to cover the entire marketing ecosystem. Was that ambitious? Yes, it probably was. But in the words of Leo Burnett, if you reach, and I actually had to check out this quote because it's been so misquoted over the years. He said, if you reach for the stars, you might not get one, but you won't come up with a handful of mud either. Oh, how that's changed over the years. In the end, we had 198 participants, and one of the things I'm going to say is the last slide that we're going to leave up is a QR code. And for those of you that haven't participated, and thank you for those of you that have, but if you could save that, and we're going to keep the survey open for another couple of weeks. We want to present robust data. So what follows is based on 78 agencies, 27 client respondents. One of the things our group felt very strongly, and it was said earlier, that the business needs to engage with SMEs. And we didn't have enough SMEs, but I think it's something for the industry to actually tackle. So what we've got are indicative findings, but what I'm about to actually go through is also substantiated by the meeting I had with Appraise and Flock and Relationship Audits, because all of us are finding the same things in terms of client feedback. So the thing that comes through strongly is the economic climate and the nervousness, paralysis, somebody said at the moment, getting a decision made, whether you're an agency or whether you're a client. And because of that, the relationships are under strain. The current state of the relationships vary where you sit. Agencies, by their nature, always optimistic. But clients, if you average all of the KPIs from each respondents, the clients were scoring 6.8, the agencies 7.5. That's a 12% difference. Also, interestingly, women scored relationships and the importance of relationships slightly higher than men. And technology is reshaping interactions. The digital tools, we believe, have changed the texture of relationships. Indeed, one of the things I think we all think in our group is that what was created for the Mad Men Madison Avenue relationships needs to be evolved to the business of today. What came through very strongly, and as I say, a lot of these findings echo what's been said earlier. Agencies view the commercial model and transparency as a strength. The clients don't. Neither side sees the current commercial models as delivering mutual value. KPI settings and timelines score poorly, and there's a recognition from both sides for better, precise metrics. More action is required on sustainability and DEI. I think we were quite shocked by just how low these scores were. And both sides, be it agency or client, really value human interaction, but more so by agencies. It's a sense that the agencies see the relationship as an anchor. That's not necessarily the case by some clients. And the time invested in the relationship. Clients recognise, and you can see by the figures here, that they don't spend enough time. It's a matter of finding that time. But people remain the heart of good relationships. But the interesting thing, and from our perspective, that isn't always prioritised in terms of reorganisations within both the marketing team and the client company and indeed the agency. But there's a strong belief that technology by itself isn't enough, and there needs to be human trust and chemistry. When I had my own agency, I always said to the new business person, you are the casting director. You come back and tell me how we need to actually field a team. People still buy people. And value isn't always recognised. Many feel, and both on the client side, as you've seen from what Tina said, but also on the agency side, there isn't an appreciation, there isn't a thank you, or aren't as many thank yous, well done, etc. That goes a long way. Personally, I'm a great believer in it's the little things that can make a difference. And for many, the sense of partnership, particularly what I said earlier, is actually weakening. Everything feels like a transaction now, was a common feedback from the agency sample. And also the talent churn is damaging continuity. The high turnover within agencies, within clients, is damaging trust. And the business is losing a lot of good people, particularly experienced people. And Michael Farmer has coined the phrase juniorization, and that is damaging the credibility of the industry. In terms of the qualitative feedback, one of the questions we asked is, what would improve relationships? And probably the quote that sums it up best is, we're at the crossroads. Relationships need rethinking. So how do they need rethinking? So we asked people, what would improve relationships? Well, firstly, making more time to build relationships. That is easy to say, hard to do. And that goes hand in hand with meeting more on a face-to-face basis. COVID changed the shape of the industry and has helped to make relationships feel transactional. But in-person contact is still seen as the fastest way to build relationships and to build trust. Also improving mutual understanding, better understanding of each other's businesses. When I go and do depth interviews with clients, I generally ask to get briefed by the agency on the person that I'm going to talk to. I'm always, well, not always, over the last few years, I've been staggered at how little the agency actually knows about the person, let alone the business. Transparency, we've already touched on that in many of today's presentations. Real collaboration, and there is a cry, particularly from the agency side, for earlier involvement. And clear and consistent communication. Communication problems often underlie many, many other problems. And many frustrations come from irregular or inconsistent communication. So, this is the no shit Sherlock chart, okay? Maybe a little bit of that is new news, but it's probably not all rocket science to many of you. The question is, what do we do? Well, we would like to present an idea to you, which we're calling the relationship renaissance. It's time for a relationship renaissance, and that is in two parts. Firstly, what we're calling the relationship accord.
Not a charter. Took you ages to come up with that.
Yeah, you see. And we spent ages finding the word accord because all of the others had gone, right? But really, it's an initiative to set a ground rules for relationships across the industry, because we saw the ecosystem earlier. This is an attempt to say, let's have an accord, let's have an agreement about best practice for relationships. Okay, we have 7 points here. There are more, but we wanted to just focus on a limited number for today. Firstly, to agree industry-wide relationship standards. Secondly, to set joint scorecards and KPIs. And I would say, as I go through this, there are some agency-client relationships I think both of us see that do parts of it, but very few do all of it. Thirdly, to actually build relationship time into the contracts and to treat relationship reviews as seriously as you treat financial reviews. Fourthly, to empower senior relationship champions. I work also with a number of professional services firms, law firms, management consultants. They are much better, on average, at having relationship champions on whatever side of the fence than most agencies. To reward long-standing partnerships. So where they exist, there should be an incentive for both sides. To make leaders visible champions by showing up at the key moments. There's so much backwards and forwards that we see that actually could be fixed by simply people not having to second guess superiors. And finally, to protect trust with proper handovers and communication and continuity. Secondly.
Thank you. Our second idea or recommendation is an outreach programme. And I think it takes time to repair relationships, but we have to start somewhere. So we felt as a group, start with the most two critical relationship partners. And you saw that in the slides that I presented, which is the CFO and the sales function. Oops, gone forward there. So if you look at it, in terms of the CFOs, we've identified some initial CFO platforms where we as an industry need to actively show up to explain the benefits, measurement and share challenges. And as I said, procurement often reports into the CFOs. And I would actually just question all of those that have worked in work streams, how many of you had finance representation? How many of you had procurement representation? I know I'm the gobby one because I'm a veteran, legend, whatever, 30, but you know, we've been around for 30 years, procurement. And finance, been around for a lot longer, but, it's really, really important, especially if you look at all the, the two studies that we've done, is really to have that relationship with the CFO. So we've identified some initial CFO platforms that you'll see up there, finance directors, FD Connect, really about a call for the industry to go out there and do presentations and engage with this audience and really show them the positive signs, like Magic and Logic that Marilyn Baxter, that I was involved in 18, 19 years ago now. It said, it's a win-win solution. And there's a big call in that Magic and Logic, still available on the IPA website for free. Chapter 6 is the one you want to read. But the recommendations are still valid today after all these years, which is, invest the time to build up the relationship with the finance side. And she said invest in measurement as well. And the second area is e-commerce and sales. It's such a key area. A lot of the clients I work with, I still see them as very separate. I did a talk yesterday for a shopper marketing agency, and it's really interesting talking about the shopper marketing role and how they feel sitting alongside the brand. And I explained where we were coming today and how they felt. And they said, they feel that a lot of their stuff is more measurable, but often sometimes don't have a very good relationship with the brand. So we really felt it'd be brilliant to start to build up a relationship as an industry, whoever that is, again, presenting at their conferences, doing some talks, be it the trade bodies or, be it people in the room, people like the Institute of Sales Professions, the UK E-Commerce Association, and people like the British Retail Consortium. But, advertising is a great thing. We generate this much revenue for the industry. So our recommendation is to do an outreach programme based around the CFOs and based around e-commerce and sales.
So, all right, in conclusion, I think what we would say is let's shape an industry where relationships aren't part of the business, they are the business, people by people. Thank you.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry, Simon.
Okay.
Time for a question, or maybe a two. Can I see? There's one over here. Simon, if you could. Simon and Tina, if you could just.
Dino. It's Dino.
Oh,
Dino's got a question.
Yeah. Hi, James. Question for you both around. We've mentioned a lot around short-termism today. So, do you believe clients are actually willing and ready to invest in relationships?
The reality is that good relationships save people time and money. Because if you have a great relationship, you can work faster, smarter, and better. And frankly, for the creative product, the creative work would be better if you have better relationships.
Dino?
Yeah, hi there. Dino from the barbershop here. You mentioned about commercial transparency and the importance of that. How, and also it's been the theme of today as well, talking about the lack of commercial transparency in agencies as well. It's also very difficult to get commercial transparency from the clients and the brands sometimes in terms of just commercial understanding in detail. So how realistic do you think it actually is to achieve that aim of getting true commercial transparency on both sides?
I think it's a tough call. I think procurement sometimes are, barriers to that. How many people in the room have had a brief with no budget, for example? But I think there is, I don't know whether AI is going to affect things, I don't know. But I think there is a willingness, and the good people will be transparent. But I think it's like this, when we had that debate before lunch about the media transparency and declaring rebates and margins, it's how far you go. I'm not a procurement person that looks at hourly rates and, the percentage, of money spent on Christmas parties, because I used to work at Grey under Gary Lay, so we won't talk about the Christmas party 20 years ago. But, I think it's achievable, but it's being realistic, I think, in terms. But I think you're right, Dino, it's on both sides.
Can I just add to that? I think also what we find is it's asking people's expectations when you actually start a relationship. And also recognising that people's expectations, or at least some of them, may change over time, and actually asking on a regular basis, rather than assuming.
Yeah, and I think that's why I like one of our on the Accord, where we've got about investing and having those relationship reviews. From a procurement point of view, we like QCR, so quarterly commercial reviews. But I always encourage my clients to look at 6-monthly relationship reviews as well. And I worked for a client once. We even had a league table of all the scores for the agencies. I loved it. The CMO asked me to stop doing it after 2 years because the agencies were getting competitive. But that really helped. And as Simon said, to review that on a regular basis, but also to have those commercial conversations. And that's what the quarterly commercial review should be. Let's see who plans are the next year, 2 years, 3 years. Where are we with the scope, etc.
Lloyd's TSB have a league table for their law firms.
Oh, do they?
And the relationships are reviewed every 3 months. But the competition between the law firms, frankly, is intense as it is, or as it would be between ad agencies.
So hopefully we get there, Dino. I think, but as always, as Bob Hoskins said, it's good to talk. Show me age again. But
well, it's also good to talk, but it's good to listen.
Yeah.
And we are very good at talking. We could be better at active listening.
On both sides?
Yes, on both sides. Yeah.
Right. On that subject, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay.